Good morning, I'm Gary DeWaal, and this is Bridging the Weeks for February 13th to 24th, and today is February 27th, 2017. Staff of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission issued formal no action, other regulators referenced exercising discretion, while still other regulators and regulatory organizations discussed forbearance, albeit not general forbearance. However, overall, during the past 2 weeks, regulators worldwide recognize the difficulty swap dealers are having in complying with the March 1st deadline for complying with certain variation margin requirements for uncleared swaps and indicated that they would likely not be taking enforcement action against non-compliers subject to such entities' efforts to comply in good faith expeditiously. Separately, U.S. futures exchanges brought a host of disciplinary actions alleging non-bona fide exchange for related position transactions, wash sales, position limits violations, and disruptive practices. Spring seems to have sprung unusually early in February in much of the United States. So I can finish my work and get outside to enjoy the fine weather. Let's get started. On February 13th, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission's Division of Swap Dealer and Intermediary Oversight said it would not recommend enforcement action to be taken against a swap dealer if it failed to comply with variation margin requirements for uncleared swaps effective March 1st. The division said that no action relief would apply through September 1st, where a swap dealer did not comply with the March 1st variation margin requirements solely because it failed to complete necessary credit support documentation or, acting in good faith, required more time to resolve operational issues, made best efforts to comply with its March 1st variation margin requirements quote-unquote, as soon as possible after March 1st, continued to post and collect variation margin with counterparties. There was an existing variation margin requirement until such time it could comply with the March 1st variation margin requirements and, by no later than September 1st, complied with the March 1st variation margin requirements for all swaps for which the requirements were applicable on or after March 1st. Subsequently, a number of other regulators and regulatory organizations worldwide indicated that they were also cognizant of the difficulty swap dealers were having in complying with the March 1st variation margin requirements, mostly because of updating documentation issues, and indicated that they would, or that regulators under their purview should, exercise some forbearance on a case-by-case basis for some additional time, provided the swap dealers acted diligently to meet their obligations. Although none of the other regulators provided relief as explicit as staff of the CFTC, they seem to have gotten the message that folks, despite best efforts, have not been able to get all necessary documents in place by March 1st and simply need more time. 4 companies settled disciplinary actions brought by the Chicago Board of Trade and ICE Futures US, alleging that they engaged in wash sales. In each action, the relevant exchange alleged that the respondent engaged in transactions solely for the purpose of transfer positions between 2 related accounts. In the cases brought by the Chicago Board of Trade, the exchange said that the problematic transactions were conducted through exchange-related position transactions, but the transactions did not have a related position as part of the arrangement. Thus, the trades were also non-bona fide EFRPs. All 4 actions involved fines between $25,000 and $30,000 US. Separately, 2 firms paid fines to ICE Futures US and were required to disgorge profits as a result of alleged intraday violations of applicable position limits, while a non-member of the Chicago Board of Trade agreed to remit $20,000 US to Chicago Board of Trade to resolve charges that, between March and June 2015, he entered multiple user-defined 10-year U.S. Treasury note-covered option spread orders that allegedly were intended to obtain more favorable prices for his option instruments than were available in the outright market. CBOT alleged that this practice constituted disruptive trading. Pay attention to the fact that 2 of these actions involved alleged intraday position limit violations. Firms must comply with position limits 24/7. ICE Futures US issued guidance in the form of frequently asked questions regarding its trader identification requirements for electronic traders. These rules are highly technical and vary from requirements of other exchanges, such as CME Group, so pay attention to the specific details. However, after reading through these new facts, and rereading rules imposing potential liability on clearing members for the acts of traders they directly sponsor to place orders on an exchange, I wonder about the value add of proposed regulation automated trading by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. As I have suggested previously, it appears that the CFTC accomplished most of its objectives by better leveraging existing exchange requirements and plugging what it perceives to be gaps through amendments to core principles for designated contract markets. It is not clear what more prescriptive regulation at the federal level adds other than substantial cost and ambiguity. New York State adopted what it claims was the first in the nation cybersecurity regulation that requires commercial banks, insurance companies, and other financial service entities regulated by the New York Department of Financial Services to implement and maintain a cybersecurity program designed to protect consumers' private information and the entity's own information technology systems. Among other things, each covered entity's cybersecurity program should be based on its own risk assessment and be designed to identify and evaluate internal and external cybersecurity threats that might threaten to compromise non-public information stored on the entity's system and protect the entity's information system and non-public data from unauthorized access through the use of quote-unquote defensive infrastructures. All members of the National Futures Association have been required to implement and enforce written policies regarding cybersecurity since March 1st of last year. These policies must be reasonably designed to diligently supervise the risk of unauthorized access or of attack of the information technology systems, and to respond appropriately should unauthorized access or attack occur. The requirements do not impose one-size-fits-all obligation on members, but instead permits members to adopt procedures relevant to the type, size, and complexity of their business. Finally, the White House issued another executive order to move forward on its effort to reduce regulation to, quote, lower regulatory burdens on the American people, end of quote. I have details on the article version of Bridging the Week on the website. Check it out. Well, that's it for this week's edition of Bridging the Week. As always, there's more information in each article and more articles on the article version of Bridging the Week on the website. Check it out. I'm Gary DeWaal. Have a great week, and until the next edition of Bridging the Week, ciao.